Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our meeting today. I'm looking forward to sharing with you a lot of information. I've scheduled 45 minutes for this discussion. I'm trying my hardest to stay within that time that I promised you. So I do want to get right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will get started. Before we begin, I want to give you some great news, and that is that there is optimism, even though there's a kind of a lot of bad news coming out about this COVID-19. Number one is the Spanish flu in 1918 eventually went away on its own without what we would call modern medicine. So I think there's some hope in that thought. There are currently 32 vaccines that are in the pipeline, and 9 of them are in phased trials today. Several of the vaccines are going to be ready by year's end, so we're told. And new cures and treatments are popping up every single day. Just about a week ago, there was a new treatment that was explained to us from England that seems to have about a 20% effectiveness for those people that are on respirators. Overnight, we saved 20% of the people. I expect that as this goes on, and I'm hoping as this goes on, that we'll see some more of these unexpected advancements going on. So be ready, at any moment, things can change, and trade shows will be back. I want to share just about 2 weeks ago, I went out to my very first restaurant after being in quarantine here in California. And there were some surprises for me, because down here in California, we've been really in lockdown. And to go out to a restaurant for the very first time got me thinking, a lot of the things that I'm experiencing are going to be the exact same things that some people are going to be experiencing their very first time to a trade show. Our family waited 2 weeks after they lifted the quarantine here in California to actually venture out. I think this goes to show you that there's going to be some reluctance and some people that are afraid to go to a next trade show. That's kind of to be expected. But everyone cooperated and followed the new rules, even though it's not like it used to be. We had to wait to be seated. But there was a hunger for this waiting. The waiting meant that there were other people just like me that wanted to experience a restaurant. So like a trade show, there's going to be a lot of people that are really excited to go out and be in a trade show. It felt weird. It was noticeable and a tiny bit uncomfortable. There were some physical changes to being in a restaurant mid-COVID here. It was new for the restaurant staff as well. We totally gave them the benefit of the doubt, gave them a little more cooperation, and we played along just as they did with us. I expect that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen at a trade show. But the restaurant was limited to half the capacity, and they had to lower their profitability a little bit. So things weren't exactly as they wanted, and it felt a little empty. There was no catch-up. There was no silverware. There were no napkins at the tables themselves. We had to ask for them, and they had to be delivered to us. So there's some procedural, physical changes as well. And there were some operational changes. As we talk in trade shows, as we look forward to mixing the medium of virtual and reality, you're going to see things like this. We actually scanned a QR code on the table in order to look at our menus on our own phones. So there was no paper menus. There was a little bit of technology involved, and it was a limited menu. There wasn't every single thing that was available there. Still, there was a sense of normality just by being back in our own haunts. And we would totally do it again. And we did it again the following week. So I think that this is a great example of what's going to happen in trade shows as we get out of COVID, or as we get back to trade shows, even mid-COVID. Unlike mass gatherings, business events and exhibitions can take place in controlled environments. So if you have a concert, a bar, something that's out of control, it's very difficult to say to everybody, line up here. But in trade shows, we're very used to lining up where they were told for registration, for a game, for a booth. So Getting these experiences is a very easy thing to do to trade show audiences. So there's real hope here in changing this from being just a mass gathering to being something a little bit extra. I think we need to discuss some of the World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control trade show recommendations. These recommendations are things like minimizing the number of staffers to reduce risk at an event. Have a proactive plan to prevent people from falling ill. Protective health measures, including hand washing, social distancing, respiratory hygiene, face masks, physical distancing, regular disinfection, and procedures, what you're going to do if someone were to get sick on a trade show floor or while they're out on the road. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to share with you all of the links for the research and things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So in a follow-up email, I'll make sure that you get those. So no need to take a whole lot of notes, and we are recording, by the way. Let me also take this moment to say, as we go a little bit further, if there are any questions, if there's anything that you'd like to know, as I've done extensive research into putting this together for you today, please put those in the comments or the chat window. We have someone here at our office that's looking in that chat window, and at the end of at the end of this presentation, if we have time, I'll try to get to as many questions as possible. Overall trade show changes that you can expect. And this isn't just from me. This is from every single one of these Zoom conferences that I've been sitting in the last couple of weeks. You're going to find distancing markers and wider aisles. That seems to be a collective agreement. There'll be masks and no handshakes. There'll be hand washing stations and Purell stations just about everywhere. There might be ticketed entry or timed entry to get into the trade show. So no more waiting at the gate for the 10 o'clock open. You might have a 10 o'clock open, an 11 o'clock open, a 12 o'clock open, so that you can stagger the amount of people that are going through. And I think there's going to be a much greater use of local staffing and contracted help. As many of us are worried about sending our C-level executives to some of these meetings and exposing them and our intellectual property that's in those people that are visiting. What we need to do is think about using event staffing, booth hostesses, maybe even temporary services as well. You'll see an increase there. On the right of your screen, you're going to see this is an actual blackjack table in Las Vegas. And you can see what they're trying to do here with plexiglass dividers, desks, and kiosks. That's obviously going to become important in the trade shows. You're going to see lower show occupancy by design. You're going to see more local and regional shows. You're going to find that there's no touch temperature scanning. Now, this is driven by local regulations and by the insurance for the show organizers. The WHO has said that they don't believe that temperature scanning is really effective because there are people that aren't showing any signs of COVID, and yet they become spreaders even though they're asymptomatic. So this is sort of an after the fact doing this temperature scanning. But many insurance folks are asking for this procedure to be put into place so that they have some sort of documentation for the show organizers' insurance. You're going to find that there's no touch brochures and giveaways and no touch demos and interactions. Now, if you're not familiar with who I am, I'm Scott Tokar. I am a trade show magician. Since 1992, I've been running Corporate Effects, the trade show magic group. And just before we went into no trade shows, we were at a few trade shows like the Con Expo, where we did 3 magicians, 3 different booths, all doing no touch presentations in magic. So for us, part of the answer was, instead of asking someone to choose a card, we were merely asking them to think of a card and name it out loud. So some of the presentations, instead of being interactive, suddenly became hands-free and hands-off. Now we've discussed some of the WHO and CDC suggestions. Let's look at some of the solutions. And I hope that's why you came to this presentation today, is to get some solutions. Here's one. Let me also say that the folks that are part here, a lot of people from Skyline Displays, the independent the dealers and distributors of Skyline Displays. I want to thank you for being with us today. Here's a great opportunity for Skyline, because I believe that one of the best things you can do is, instead of doing a large trade show exhibit, think about a row of 10 by 10 inline spaces. This allows you to use some of the existing wider aisles as part of your booth as well. It's automatic social distancing through graphics and wide spaces. You can use floor markers in this design, and you can purchase both sides of an aisle. So you now have that middle aisle being a big part of your booth. By the way, the graphic you see on the right-hand side is a graphic from Skyline Displays, and many of the things that I'm going to be talking about today are completely in their rental inventory. So you might want to chat with your local Skyline representative about that. A lot of use of stanchions and ropes and chains are perfect to direct the traffic. But don't forget the use of these are great places to advertise as well. Banner stands can easily be used as separations themselves. So this allows you to now separate one work area from another work area with an inexpensive banner stand that has your advertising or graphics on it as well. Many of us are familiar with scheduled emptying of trash cans from the show organizer or from Freeman, GES, those kind of folks. I believe that you're going to also find that there's going to be scheduled disinfection services that are going to be available from them. So you might want to consider adding to that show services guide, disinfection, emptying trash, vacuuming the carpet. It's just going to be another one of those things. Masks will be available for everybody, but remember, they are a branding opportunity too. And remember that a branding opportunity doesn't necessarily mean that your entire mask says the word of the company. You might want to put it in a small place so that people feel comfortable wearing your mask after the trade show as well. Plexiglass is going to be everywhere. It's going to be separating just as you do at the supermarkets and at restaurants and at nail salons. You'll find that your reception counter will most likely have plexiglass. But it's also a great place to put some vinyl graphics or branding too. So don't overlook that. You want to increase the distancing between the people and wider aisles in the booth. And remember, here's a real tip. Height equals distance as well. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in just a little bit. You want to limit paper and use QR codes for prize entries and brochures. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is actually a banner stand that I found in my local Home Depot with individual QR codes for different services. This is a simple way, instead of a brochure rack, for you to be able to hand out your brochures electronically. Gamify the interaction. When they scan these QR codes, you can bring them anywhere, to any website. So you might want to have a game action going on there. Answer some questions from things you found in the booth. It allows them to have the interaction using their device and only using QR codes and electronics. And of course, just as we said before all of this, encourage social media interaction. It's just another touch point, even though we're not using physical things. Now, here is the number one thing that I hope you take away from this talk today. We have just trained the entire world how to use Zoom and Zoom meetings. Up to this point, if I said to you that I wanted to have a video conference and a sales meeting by video, you would be asking me whether we'd be using FaceTime, Skype, whether we'd be using Microsoft Meetings or Hangouts, we'd be using Google. But everyone is so familiar with the Zoom, you're actually using it right now. We have all become used to this. So the dream of every trade show person up to this point has been a timely and effective follow-up. Instead of sending these folks to CRM like Salesforce.com and just scanning a badge, the best thing you can possibly do is open up your calendar as a booth attendant or salesperson and say, hey, let's schedule a Zoom meeting so I can give you a hand-to-hand demonstration of this software, of this product. We can do a sales demonstration immediately. So let's schedule that for Tuesday. Is 12 o'clock okay? By doing this method, instead of just scanning someone and putting them into the CRM, you're going to have immediate, actionable follow-ups, and your sales staff can do more sales presentations in one day than they ever were able to do if they went out on the road. So there really is a positive workflow from this terrible COVID thing. That is, the number one thing you should think of is scheduling Zoom meetings while you're on the trade show floor. I don't know if you've been to any of these virtual trade shows, but I've been to about 3 or 4 of them, and they're kind of boring. They're not really giving me the delivery that I've seen in a live trade show. That's because everyone is just a URL click. In fact, you're delivering the same information that you'd be able to deliver on any web page, even though it's fancy and has 3D rendering. In a real trade show, even if you're looking at less people that are attending, you still need to attract your visitor. You need to give them a reason to engage. Here are some positives out of this post-COVID trade show. Lower attendance sounds like it's a problem, but it really means that there's going to be more qualified leads. The people that are there at the show are the people that want to be at the show. Staggered admission. That means that there's more focused time. And finally, in trade shows, that last day, that third day of the show is usable, because not everyone's going to get on the trade show floor unless they're scheduled. So a 3-day trade show, that last day that seems so slow, suddenly becomes useful. Meaningful content means greater appreciation. If you entertain them, if you give them something to remember, you're going to have more memorability and an ease of conversation. And when you follow up, that makes it real easy too. For giveaways, instead of using a ballpoint pen to give away or something like that, think about emailing gift cards or any kind of giveaway. This thing, by emailing it to them or sending it to them afterwards, this gives you a second contact, and it saves you a lot of money on shipping and drayage to a trade show floor. So I love the idea of, for me as a magician, teaching the audience how to do a magic trick at the end of the presentation, and then saying, we're going to send you all the things you need to do this magic trick, and showing the sales staff how to follow up with that on their Zoom meetings as well. Now, I promised you that I was going to talk to you about demonstrations and presentations. And I think this is an area where I have a bit of expertise. So here's a couple of thoughts for you right away. You must insist on shorter, tighter presentations with a focus on a single message. TED conferences evolved the public speaking style where people have a very tight presentation that they're going to deliver. Social media platforms have also trained us to have a shorter bite-size consumption of information. So I want you to think about making sure that any presentation you do, whether it's a software demo, a live presentation with an ear prompter, or a magician, all of the presentations need to be shorter so you can deal with a smaller audience and deal with this traffic flow. You need to honor the visitor. They're giving you their time to stop. You need to educate them and release them for the follow-up after the show. Just as much as it's important to attract somebody to the exhibit, you need to make sure that you release them. And it's the job of your presenter to keep track of the size of the audience. If things begin to get out of hand, if you have too many people and distancing becomes an issue, that presenter needs to be able to, on the fly, to release that audience so that they can build the next audience in a better distancing way. If you have a waiting line for a presentation and you have markers on the floor, this is also a great opportunity for you to interact. So you can put the line around a display area, and a person can stand at that display area and deliver information as people wait to go to the next piece in your exhibit. But it's really important to give people escape paths within these social distanced exhibits and booths. I looked at a suggestion from a European designer, a stand manufacturer, a display builder, and they had hedges and walls and a path for people to walk through a booth. That's great, but if you find out 30 seconds into that path that this isn't the right answer for you, or if you need to go use the restroom, there's no way out. It's a timed thing. And they're liable to not only waste your time, but also they're liable to be a little upset with being trapped. You need to have timing for crowd flow, not big crowds. So your presentations need to be more frequent and they need to be shorter. Professionals on a script have the stamina to repeat that same message over and over and over again throughout the day. So on top of that, hiring someone to do a scripted presentation means that you don't have to bring someone else from your home office. And if there are travel restrictions or if there's concern about traveling, this is another thing off of your plate. You don't have to worry about that hiring a professional. Physical distancing in a theater type presentation. These are ever-changing rules, by the way, and these rules can change from venue to venue. So if you're in Orlando, their Florida or county rules in the county of Orange there in Orlando versus Las Vegas may be very different. If you're planning to move your exhibit, if you're going to place floor graphics or chairs, make sure that they're very movable so that you can change. In fact, sometimes you'll find that the changes might happen day to day. It's a timed-based thing. So maybe they'll say, oh, we now say that you can put more people in, or now you need more distance. If you use something like ottomans and floor graphics, it allows you to move that audience very easily. Think about using ottomans, those cubes that people can sit upon. And if I put graphics, as you see in my example there to the right, if you put floor graphics on the floor, it allows people that might be comfortable with each other as a group to join that group and still be distanced from others. So you want to allow for that self-grouping. And remember, a standing audience behind these floor graphics gives you an automatic standing ovation. That's not a problem at all. Here are some examples of what we've seen out in the real world for social distancing right now. On the left is a news conference from the Pentagon. On the top right, that's an actual theater for live theater in Italy. And down on the lower right, that's how they've decided to distance folks in a classroom in China. So using partitions, grouping seating apart from each other, or using movable seating gives you the flexibility that you might need in a trade show. The biggest thing is the fear or uncertainty. If you inject humor and fun into a context here, people are going to let their guard down, be more comfortable and open to a conversation, and they're going to be much more entertained, which makes it much more memorable after the trade show. So regardless of your social distancing, you can ease some of that fear and uncertainty by allowing people to smile. The 10 by 10 exhibit is probably the most difficult thing to deal with when we're talking about distancing. If you have a 10 by 10 island, which is perfect, you can actually set up different areas. And instead of putting your pop-up or your display at the back of the exhibit, use it to separate your exhibit so that you have different areas for people to be at. I selfishly put a magician on a 4-foot riser on this presentation in a 10 by 10 island. A 4-foot riser means that my distance to my audience is greater from mouth to mouth or from person to person. So I can actually get people to come in closer to see a presentation if I'm up higher. I had a customer ask me just recently, how could we possibly do a presentation if we're outside? Well, this is a great solution for you right here. First off, outdoor venues reduce exposure for everybody. So you're probably going to see a lot of events that are going to be looking at expanding a trade show hall or using fully outdoor venues in order to get some of these meetings done. A gazebo or a tent automatically distances people from each side. As you can see in this example, this is an octagon. And at each octagon, you can place graphics on the table to remind people to socially distance. You can also add stanchions for traffic flow, so people can step up to watch a presentation or ask questions of your staff. This gives a person that's in the center of this exhibit full distancing and a lot more comfortable atmosphere. They even have shade outside. So I believe this is a great way to deal with live presentations, a magician, or doing a sales demonstration on a fairgrounds or on an outdoor exhibiting area. Capture and release is more important to maximize your staffing effectiveness. Remember that the new scanning, instead of scanning a badge or asking for a business card, is to ask for a Zoom meeting. That's going to change our world. Even if there was no COVID, just having the ability to do sales presentations by Zoom has increased our effectiveness in follow-up after a trade show. Use existing open spaces and wider aisles to your advantage. And remember, if your competitor is afraid and isn't at the show, your exposure will be increased and you will be remembered. Recognize that attendees will be balancing the desire for connections and community with their fear of crowds. So for exhibitors, focus on the quality of the attendee that you're attracting through these marketing campaigns. Our badge scans may not be at the quantifiable limits that we had in 2019, but if you're doing the right follow-up, your effectiveness should be greater. I want you to look at advertisements, at retail establishments, at restaurants, and at amusement parks for examples of what people are doing and follow their example. Now, I wanted to play this video for you. It's a 30-second commercial from DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse. But unfortunately, over Zoom, we tend to get lag times. So let me just kind of walk you through this. This is a commercial that's on the air right now. It opens up very normally to remind you that Designer Shoe Warehouse is open. You might notice in the background, though, there are floor markings on the floor. But at 15 seconds into this 30-second commercial, nothing is mentioned. It's just how great Designer Shoe Warehouse is. At the 15-minute mark, you begin to notice more of the things that they're doing in order to make the visitor comfortable. So things like floor graphics, things like masks, things like a place that's separate to try on those shoes, and the fact that they're disinfecting the shoes between try-ons. This is the actual advertisement to get people to feel comfortable to coming to a Designer Shoe Warehouse. This is the exact same thing that the exhibit industry, the show organizers, and us as exhibitors are going to need to remember. We need to have the first 15 seconds feel totally normal, and then deliver something for them that reassures them that we are concerned about their health and their safety. Being a magician, it's time for a magic trick. Is that okay? Give me a thumbs up, everybody out there, if it's okay. This is real simple, something that you can all do with me, all right? I would like you to look at your screen, place your finger on any of the blue squares on this screen. Now, I have no idea what blue square you're on. We have so many participants in this meeting, it's impossible for me to keep track of all of that. But I'd like you to move your finger left or right to the nearest white square. So from that blue square, move left or right to a white square, the nearest one. Now that you're on a white square, I want you to move either up or down to the nearest blue square. And to mix things up, just like I'd shuffle a deck of cards, let's mix things up and go diagonally to the nearest white square. Now I want you to move your finger from that white square, either left or right to the nearest blue square. Now there's only blue squares left. Your finger's on one of them. Did I get it right? Are you on Corporate Effects? That's my company, the Trade Show Magic firm. Hopefully that was a success for you. But I want to thank some of our sponsors, some of the folks that joined us here for this talk. Skyline Indiana, Skyline San Diego, Skyline Orange County, Skyline Houston, the Bay Area, Pacific Northwest, Inland Northwest, my companies, eventstaffingdirect.com and Corporate Effects, we want to thank you. I'm going to be sending you these links so that you can follow up at the end of this and find out any of this information that we had. I'm also going to give myself some shameless self-promotion. I will be at the Exhibitor Fast Track. So if you're familiar with Exhibitor Magazine and Exhibitor Live, I'll be doing the Fast Track in Louisville, November 10th through the 11th with my Booth Basics Boot Camp. If you'd like to register for that, go to exhibitorlive.com or follow the link that I'm going to give you. I just started a new podcast called Face the Event. It's interviews with people that are in the presenting, crowd gathering, model folks that are in the trade shows. You want to see a trade show from their side of the aisle, then you might want to check out our Face the Event podcast, available on just about every podcast distribution method that there is. Corporate Effects Trade Show Magic Group is mine. Event Staffing Direct is mine. And next week, I want to invite you. I'm going to do it at the same time. It's going to be 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern. We're going to do a roundtable. I'm not going to share anything. I want you to have the opportunity to share with other exhibitors and what your concerns are, what your solutions are. If you are looking for a place just to have lunch and talk with folks that are in the same position as you are, please join us next week in the COVID-19 informal trade show roundtable meeting. So I have a couple of questions that I did want to answer. So the first one was, Sonny Jenkins asked, should we anticipate that trade shows will be minimizing their maximum attendee headcount in addition to minimizing the staff? Absolutely, yes. I think that we're going to have caps. Just as you've seen caps in a restaurant, you're going to be seeing trade shows capping that, which might also make it a little more exciting, especially if trade shows sell out, which will just give people a little bit more buzz in the feel of that. Robert Moore asked, do you think the standard booth sizes should be increased 10 by 10 to 15 by 15 and 20 by 20? Hey, I got some good news for you. This is sort of bad news and good news. The bad news is there's been a great economic impact to this COVID-19 for just about everybody. And the trade show halls themselves are feeling that impact just as you and I are. Now, in order to get people to come into your store, they run specials. But I'll bet you that McCormick Place will be offering extra space to the show organizer so that they can widen those aisles. And it's up to that show organizer to offer some of that extra space that they've been given by those venues to you, the exhibitor. So as an exhibitor that's looking at doing a show, it's our job as the exhibitors to ask those organizers, can you give us a 15 by 15 for the price of a 10 by 10? I think we're all in the catbird seat here, and everyone wants to see trade shows increase. So yes, I believe it's great to increase your size, your footprint. I will be making this PowerPoint available to everybody. I'll be doing a follow-up email to everybody along with an invite for that trade show roundtable. And someone asked me, this was from Vinti Singh and Leslie Stike, I believe it was, asked me, what is a no-touch brochure? At the beginning of the presentation, I shared with you a no-touch menu from a restaurant. It's a QR code that brings you to a PDF that you can download. Now, a PDF can be placed onto a web page the same way as a web HTML document can be. So you can either give them a menu of, now that you're at my QR code, pick where you want to go and download the brochure, or bring them straight to that PDF download. So that's very easy to do. And I have one final question from Sunny. Should businesses be considering a whole new purchase and booth setup from what we're used to? Well, seeing that this is from Skyline, yes, absolutely. Please consider, but remember that your Skyline offices also have a rental inventory that's available for you today. So if you're a little leery of purchasing all new booth properties, I'm sure that your Skyline representative would be happy to help you rent and mix some of that, or maybe this is a good time to ask for a whole new booth. Folks, I have to say that I might have like one more question here. Let's see what we have. Grace Bell asks, what are some good giveaways? Great question. Giveaways, keep in mind I'm a magician, and for giveaways for me are usually magic tricks, things that I can teach the audience. This gives them a reason to show or play with the object that you're giving them away from the trade show booth. Because often many of our giveaways end up in a round file in a hotel room. But if you've given them an extra power, a feeling that they can do something that nobody else can, a magic trick is a great thing. Now, you can do a virtual giveaway of a magic trick, because if we hold up a QR code and send them to an instructional video and show them how that they can do a magic trick for themselves using common ordinary objects that are around the office, that's easy for us to do. As a matter of fact, one of the programs that Corporate Effects that we developed for Abbott Laboratories many years ago is Side Effects, trade show magic that was done to teach doctors and nurses how to do magic with their patients using objects that are already in the exam room. So stethoscopes, otoscopes, rubber gloves became magic items in their hands. We didn't have to give anything out. Well, we gave away the book, but we didn't really have to give anything away. We just taught them how to do these things, and that brought that to their exam rooms themselves. So a great opportunity. All right, so Alex, I'm gonna end with this one. Alex asks me, will virtual online shows be a fad, or can they be successful? Alex, have you ever heard of Second Life? Second Life was about 10 years ago, a virtual environment that people could walk around in. It was absolutely an amazing fad that went on in computers. In fact, many companies, even churches, were setting up buildings within this Second Life universe where you could take an avatar and walk around and be part of this environment. If you don't remember Second Life, that's because it wasn't successful. It was a great fad, and it was very effective when it was running. I remember going and visiting that and coming back thinking, wow, I just walked down the street, but I was really virtual. I think that we're used to the virtual environment, but frankly, it doesn't deliver what a live presentation or a live interaction will deliver. There's something about being live. If that weren't true, we wouldn't see rock concerts with live presentations anymore. We would just listen to albums or watch them on videos on the internet. There's a thing that really brings us together, and that is live. So I hope that you will consider doing that, that live as well. Let me see if I can bring myself back from screen sharing so we can, I guess I can't, so I'm just going to leave you there. I want to thank you all for being with us on this presentation. Keep an eye out for a follow-up email where we will invite you to that roundtable. Thanks a lot, folks. I enjoyed being with you.